How to write riffs in drop tunings. So we're going to keep it simple and just tune to drop D here. So the way you do that is your guitar is tuned to normal guitar tuning, except for the low string is tuned to D instead of E. So the tuning will be D, A, D, G, B, and E. So the biggest difference with playing in drop tuning is that you can play riffs on the same fret on your two bottom strings. Because we're now tuned to a perfect fifth. Normal tuning, you need to play two frets apart to get that sound, but when you're in drop tuning, you can play the same fret and it will sound good. So that's the first thing. So let's have a look at a couple of ways of doing that. So we're just going to play open, bottom three strings now. And then we're going to play those three strings on the sixth fret. So as you can see from that example, immediately that makes life simple for you. You can play faster runs. And you can just use one finger for each fret and play it almost as a lead line instead of playing it as you would normally have to do it. So next thing we want to look at is octaves. So again, normally you'd have to play octaves on the low E string and the D string, two frets apart, but because we're in drop tuning, we can play the same fret but just skip a string and it will give you an octave. So for example, if you're playing an octave of this note, you just play here. So now we've got in our arsenal fifths and octaves. So when playing octaves, as well as playing it as in or, you can play it as single notes. And that's just an example of playing single notes, but we're going to stop it instead of letting them ring out. So again, and we're killing this note with this finger. And again, that's octaves. Also on octaves, we can play the same riff on the bottom string and on the D string and it will sound good. Because it's an octave, so you can just play. So whatever you're playing on the bottom string, you can play on the third string and it will sound good because it's an octave. So the next trick you can use is playing the same pattern on the bottom two strings because it's going to be a perfect fifth apart. it sound good. So, for example, that little thing I was doing there, which is it's just a 10, 13, 10, 13, 10, 13, 10, open, and then so, for example, you could do and because they're a perfect fifth, they're naturally going to sound good. So let's talk about thirds. I would avoid playing thirds using the bottom string and the A string, purely because you need a stretch like that. So we've got 5 and 1. There's a minor third for you. There's a major third, but who uses major thirds in metal? So again, 5 and 1, that'd give you a third, so I'd avoid that. But what I would suggest is use your thirds on your A and your D string. So thirds on those two strings would be 2 frets behind, so that's a minor third. So we've got a 5, 5 and 3. That'll give you your minor third. And because that is an octave of your open low string, you can play the 3 together. That was a major third. I must have got a bit confused there using the major third. Next up, we've got fourths. So a fourth is when you play a note on the low E string and then a note 2 frets back on the next string. So for example there. So what I'm playing there is 5 and 3. Okay, so on the other strings it would be the same fret, but on the bottom 2 it would be 2 frets behind. So in drop tunings, chromatics are a lot easier to use. So because we only have to play 2 frets or 2 strings with 1 finger, it makes it a lot easier to play chromatic runs. If you're playing that normally, you'd have to be. It makes it a lot easier when you're having to use 2 fingers instead of just 1. One of the other benefits of writing riffs in drop tunings is that you can go from playing open to fretted a lot easier because you're only having to use 1 finger. For example there, other than that little part where I was playing the 12-13 or 13-12, whatever it was I was doing, I'm playing an open note in between every note. You just wouldn't be able to do that as easily if you're playing in standard tuning. So you can play into for example, that would be a lot harder to play on standard tuning because I'm only having to use 1 finger on both of those strings. One of the other benefits of playing in drop tunings is because your 3rd string is the octave of your low string, you can use your A string or whatever tuning you've got, but you can use your A string to create harmonies, and it will always work here. So for Let's Play, we're going to play this note, the open D string. We're going to play that open throughout here. So we've got so it just works because that note is the octave of that, so it's always going to work in harmonies. So you just need to pick the harmonies. You just need to work on the harmonies that you want to play with D. For example, if you want a minor third, you've got the F. If you want the fourth, you've got the G, fifth, etc, etc. So it leaves it open for you to create a lot more interesting harmonies by using your open middle D string. And that's how you use drop tunings to write heavy metal riffs.